space around him. Tierney playing with his marker and Rashford might lead him now. He gets it from Fernandes, who steers it. One from it. De Bruyne. Salah. He's got one of these. It's Zuma. Oh, what a finish from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Hello football fanatics and welcome to the Football Talk. If it's your first time joining us on the channel, we're basically a football channel for everyone. We're not part of a specific fan base. We all support different teams. We all have different thoughts. So if you're watching this and there's anything that you'd like to talk about, our contact details are in the description down below. Hit us up on social media, send us an email. If there's anything that you want to talk about, anything that's making you happy about football, anything making you sad about football, get in contact, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. We're always up to have a chat about football. So on that, the reason that we're having this video today is that I wanted to have a little bit of a rant, and I decided to bring two people along with me for this rant, Clyde and Chris. Clyde, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Good. Chris, out of South Africa, how are you doing, bro?
Good, thanks. Nice to be back.
Yeah, it's a good time to be back. There's a lot of football going on. So, yeah, good stuff to talk about. Something that I want to talk about today, maybe not that good, is everything changes in life, right? So no matter what it is, computers evolve, sports technology evolve, we evolve. Today I wanted to talk about the evolution of the football fan. There's two things that I've seen recently. Chris, you're a part of one, so I'll mention the other one first. Is I saw a Man United fan on social media very recently start his tweet off commenting on Steven Gerrard's success at Rangers. Completely agree. He's doing really well at Rangers Football Club. The rest of the tweet then went on to talk about how he'd love to have him at Man United to replace Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now, yeah, Chris, Clyde, I can hear you laughing. So, gentlemen, so being a football fan for 25, 26 plus years now, that makes me sick, if I'm completely honest. The way that I was brought up, anything to do with Liverpool, as a Man United fan, just wouldn't fly with me. From judging from your two reactions, I think we're on a similar trajectory or thought process there. The second one, Chris, I would guess today, he supports two teams in England. He supports Manchester United, and his second team that he enjoys watching play is Leeds United. And that is a rivalry. I've had this discussion with Chris a couple of times. That goes back to the 1920s, maybe even earlier than that. And it's something that's become more and more accepted today. So my first question for you guys is, Clyde, we'll go with you first. How do you think, has being a football fan changed from the time you started watching? Is it still the same now for you, or what's changed? How has it changed?
Well, I think we should, if we are going to start off, describing one of the changes, I think let's stick to a positive one, right? So if you think of the football fan when we were growing up, say in the 90s and going into the 2000s or whatever, it was largely based on your support extent to either being at the game or in front of the TV, right? That was kind of about it. Because of a lack of social media and so on, that was really the two avenues that connected you to your team, right? So I think with the technology that's coming and so on, I actually think it has been a positive. It's had a positive influence on how supporters can access their clubs. Just seeing something as small like how training sessions are handled. Sometimes you see these on YouTube channels or club official channels and so on. You get to see the sometimes snippets of training, press conferences and so on. It definitely does help you to feel connected to your club. I mean, back in our day, we just got drip-fed information either through news or magazine shows or whatever. So there definitely has been some positives. And also, I think support has now become more inclusive. I think back in the day, you're talking about 20, 25 years now, football fans were more, it was geared to more the extroverts, if I want to put it that way. It was, very much watch the game with a group of friends and have a few drinks or watch it at the pub or whatever it is. Now all of a sudden it's different. It's catering more to the introverts, to the geeks, the nerdy people out there as well. So I definitely think that it has become much more inclusive as well.
Cool. Chris, how about you? Is there anything that you'd like to add to Clyde? Anything that's changed for you?
I do agree 100% with Clyde. It has it has allowed people to access the game more, which I think is absolutely brilliant. It's also brought parts of the world into the game which otherwise might not have. However, the one issue I have with that is it's also gone a bit sideways. What I mean by that is, before, if I watched my first team, Man United, play, and I wasn't happy with the player, I would sit in my living room, I would swear him. My dad was there, I might chat with him and tell him I think the guy is shit. And that was that. Excuse my language. That was that. Now I have the opportunity to go onto social media and racially abuse that player, personally attack that same player. And so, yes, it's changed. It's made it more inclusive for the fans, but I also think it's created a lot more intense fans. That, I mean, look, I'm going to be brutally honest here. Football has been part of my life, if not my life, for the last 30 and a bit years. And we all love this game. It is huge. But at the end of the day, it is a game. So if a guy makes a mistake that leads to a goal, I don't want to see all of that racial abuse and personal attacks because a player made a mistake on the field. And for me, that's the issue that I have with it becoming more inclusive. So 100% there's positives with the way it's changed to be a fan, but there's also the sour part of it, which unfortunately, because and the other thing is it's easy to hide behind a social media account. These people who are personally attacking players on social media, I'm quite sure would they run into a player in public, they wouldn't say a word. They quietly carry on walking, and
So
that's
on
my
that,
problem.
Chris.
Yes.
So on that, I agree with both of you. We've got definitely positives that have
of course.
developed from let's call them the social media modern fans, or the modern social media fan era, because whether we like it or not, that is the direction that football fans
But
have gone in.
I want to add one thing, because I've been thinking about that part specifically as well. And if you look at social media and how people behave, especially football fans behave on social media, I think it's important to understand one thing, that this type of behavior is not originated on social media. It's actually an extension of football fans in general. Now, if you look at compared to 30 or 40 years, the match going experience at a stadium is much more better than it was back then. If you ask most people who were taking their kids back then, or if you ask our parents, was a football game a safe space? Would they feel comfortable taking you as a kid to go to a game? They would most likely say no. Okay, so I'll acknowledge that the match going experience has gotten better. But if you look at it, if you're talking about the jeering and abusing, shouting abuse, swearing at players, the racist chanting, it's actually all originated at the stadium itself. And if you look at fighting amongst fans, okay, it doesn't happen that much before, but before it was actually quite a big thing. You'd see it in the stadium, outside the stadium, whatever. It was so much more intense back then. And now, to put it this way, people were comfortable exhibiting that type of behavior in public, not hidden, not anonymous, okay? Now, you take that same behavior, give people anonymity, and you can imagine how that would blow up. So as much as I do believe that social media has exacerbated the issue and it's made it more visible, but it definitely has not been the origin of what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, we can say I think
no.
that it's given a bit of a platform to something that
Yeah,
was
definitely.
already bubbling under. Yeah, okay, so let's move on to something else, and something else that has been bred through social media and the new social media fans is, so growing up we all had our favorite players. There's something that I've noticed on social media recently, being a Man United fan, and I'm sure that other fan bases have a similar thing go on, is that there's groups of people on social media who have tended to get behind a player, somebody who they like for whatever reason. They like their style of play, they like who they are, whatever they like their brand, whatever it might be. And has that changed from when you first started watching football? So, for example, there's a player that you like that isn't making the starting lineup. You see the starting lineup come out, and there's fans today that are not seeing the player that they like in the starting 11 and almost wishing losses upon the team, because if the team wins, they don't get to see their favorite player play. Do you think that's something, Clyde, like you mentioned, do you think that there's something that existed pre-social media fans, or is that something that's developed because of social media and people being able to clan together?
I think it did exist, but maybe not so much with players as such. I think it was more a case of if they weren't happy with the coach or whatever, they'd kind of wish a lost support of their team, and you still kind of see that today. But in terms of the almost the cult of personality that players carry, it's obviously now more stronger than ever. But even when you initially gave me the idea of what you wanted to talk about in this video as well, I thought of my support for someone like Benny McCarthy. Now, when he, after he blew up at that AFCON '98, he was one of my favorite. He still is one of my favorite players of all time up until this day, and it didn't bother me where he played. I always wanted him to do well. Okay, now it would have been a bit of an issue if he played for Manchester United, for example, but he had that pull because he was, first of all, he's from the same country. He's this young player, just a world-class talent that we've never seen before. So it was natural that we were going to latch onto him. Now, if you think of players like Lucas Radebe, when he was at Leeds and so on, we as South Africans tend to follow those players. But you can say we really wanted them to do well regardless of where they were playing, right? Now, I don't think that much has changed that much, but like I said, now that people have a platform to show that off, it's and especially if you look at the demographic of those people, they're likely to be a much younger crowd. Okay, so I mean, we were all kids at one stage, so it's natural that they kind of they're more irrational, and they want their player to do well as much as their team, but chances are more their player, right? Now, if I look at a few players that I can think of just at the top of my head right now, okay, Salah, to start off with, as soon as he moved to Liverpool, all of a sudden there was a whole lot more Egyptian followers in that Liverpool, right? I can think of Pogba. He has a very, very strong group of supporters, and not just French, but also I think he's from Guinea. I can't remember now, but
it is.
Yes, right. He has a strong African support base, especially around West Africa and so on.
Yeah.
And I saw similar with Drogba and John Obi Mikel. People actually started supporting the clubs that they played for because of those players, right? So I think if I look at it, that the concept of it hasn't changed much from when we were kids. The difference is now it's that it's so fervent, it's like it's taking what we experience and amplified. But it also kind of makes sense because I I mean, I look at Pogba for an example, right? He's a hero to so many people because how many players who, especially kids from from Guinea and so on, they don't get to see somebody who looks like them, who's from their country, being being where he is right now, talented, successful, rich, famous. So it's important for them to be able to have someone like Pogba to look up to as well. So there's a lot of positives to it, and I can see where it originates. But it, obviously, like you said, it does get toxic once it becomes player over club.
Club. Yeah, Chris, I have a different question for you. So a second thing that's developed from social media, and people have done really well. Arsenal TV are an example of this. They're massive. I don't know the exact amount of followers that they have, but they're a group of fans who started a social media channel, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it might be. They now get replied to by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, by other players in Arsenal. They're not just a group of friends sitting down at break time during school or over a couple of beers at a pub talking about this. Their word is being heard by players in a locker room. That can be a very positive thing when things are going well. Recently, there's some fan channels who have very negative things to say and then get people who listen to them to also start to agree with them, to also be very negative about things when things go wrong. My question to you is, do you think it's better now that we have a channel to be able to have players hear what we're saying, compared to like when Clyde was speaking before about the differences from when we grew up in the 90s watching fans? We're just friends talking to each other. Is it better now that we have a link to the players, that we have a link to the club, or are we creating a toxic environment for our own clubs through these fan channels that are constantly berating players? I believe the Granit Xhaka, when he showed the middle finger to the Arsenal fans when he got substituted, a part of that, not all of it, a part of that stemmed from some of the previous comments made on Arsenal Fan TV. So what do you think, Chris? Do you think that it's fan TV channels, fan TV groups, do you think it's been a positive, or do you think it's created a bit of a negative vibe around football clubs?
I'll be honest with you. I think it's created a toxic atmosphere. For the simple reason I think footballers, at the end of the day, they're human. They're going to make mistakes. And also, they have emotions. So if you constantly, and especially on a global platform like YouTube, where millions can see, people who are supposed to be supporting you in week in, week out, are now berating you, are swearing you, are racially abusing you, it makes players crack. And I don't agree with what Xhaka did, but I can understand it. At some stage, enough is enough. And the thing is, what I also think is it's today's, shall we call it, mentality. Today's mentality is very negative. They will rather point out the bad than the good. And the moment and it's also a culture of following people. People don't have they don't have a voice of their own, but they can't make up their own mind. So they listen to the loudest person, whether what they're saying is good, bad, makes sense or not. And then you have people ganging up on a Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, for instance, who might not even have watched the game, who understand nothing about football, but because 2.3 million other Arsenal fans are saying that he's bad and had a bad game, I must jump on that bandwagon. So I think it's created an absolutely toxic environment. I mean, you go back to the 90s, I loved Clarence Seedorf. When he had a bad game, there was no way for me to really get in. I could have written him a letter, but now it's so easy for me to, and not even just tell him, Clarence, you had a bad game, track back, defend more. That I can understand. On Twitter and stuff, there's debates where there is respect, where people are really just discussing the issue, but people hide behind the anonymity, and any sort of mature and reasonable debate turns sour so quickly just because someone can't handle the truth. And yeah, I know. I feel it's created an absolutely toxic environment, which personally, it's actually damaging football, I think.
Okay, so on that note, we're running out of time, Jen. So let's go to the last question. So let's try as best as we can to summarize what it is that we've been talking about. So I feel that like there's a lot of chat about tactics amongst fans, and I know that used to happen in school playgrounds, at pubs, at bars, at your friend's house. So that's not something new. It's just something that's now found its way to social media. But because of player supporters clubs, if we can call them that, player FCs as they're referred to as on social media, because of fan channels, there's a lot of fans that have their say in terms of starting 11s, in terms of tactics, in terms of people love talking about, and I keep making fun of this. I don't know why, I find it hilarious, but so many people talk about double pivots these days. I don't know when it is that everybody became tactical geniuses, but everyone apparently knows the best way to implement a double pivot. I'll be honest, I had no idea what a double pivot was until about 6 months ago. Low blocks and high blocks, and so my final question to you guys, and Chris, we'll start with you first, is: have we ruined the experience of watching football, or are we ruining the experience of watching football? Are we turning it into a little bit of an American sport, in the sense where Americans analyze everything in their sports? They have pre-match shows that go on for hours where they talk about every single pass that was thrown in previous games, every single shot that was taken during a game, and then after the game they break everything down. When we do that, are we actually watching 90 minutes of football, or are we sat there going like, maybe we should do this or maybe we should do that? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Have we improved the football experience for ourselves as fans, or do you think we've dropped it a little bit?
I'll be honest, as I said, with today's mentality, I think we've given us a false sense of having improved it. Everyone can have their say and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I mean, how many of those conversations actually ever end well with those fans in a pub trying to talk tactics? No, I don't think it's... A bit of analysis is great, but in all honesty, I think that analysis should be kept for the team. If we are playing Team X next week, we do a tactical analysis on them. We have a look, what do they do in their game? But that hour before the game, that half an hour, that 15-minute break where they're discussing, oh, had he been 6 inches further to the left, he would have gotten in behind. He wasn't 6 inches to the left. He didn't get in behind. It's gone. Move on. And for me, that is honestly rather just show 15 minutes of adverts or 10 minutes of adverts, 5 minutes of highlights with no breaking it down. Because the thing is also, I find a lot of those pundit people are guys who don't actually know what they're talking about. And we know this from experience, because when I went for the coaching courses, one of the guys who is in punditry every week was actually told to just please leave the coaching course and not come back because he doesn't have a clue about what he's talking about.
Drop names. We're here for the
Okay, can I?
Drop the
Can
name.
I?
Yeah,
Alan
drop the name.
Shearer.
Alan
Alan Shearer.
Okay. Thank you. That's an exclusive for the football talk. You heard it here first. Alan Shearer was kicked out of the Scottish FA coaching badge for not being good enough. Sorry, Chris, continue.
But yet he's in punditry telling us how Liverpool or Man United should be setting up to beat Man City. Really? And the problem is, guys like that then give your average Joe who's never kicked the ball in his life and who's never actually managed a game of football, it gives them the sense that, well, if he can talk about it, so can I.
Clyde? Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, so I want to move on to Clyde quickly.
Yeah, go for it, of course.
Clyde, what do you think? I know you really like the tactical side of it. So what's your thoughts on this?
I like the fact that the tactics has been more, is more commonly discussed and it's incorporated in the game more, because it is an integral part of the game. to answer your question, what you were asking about earlier, where did all of a sudden the common fan think he knows the double pivot? It's likely through playing games like Football Manager or whatever, which is actually a very, very realistic simulation, by the way, but obviously it doesn't make you a qualified football coach. You don't know more than Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp or whoever just because you played Football Manager, right? So let's just get that out of the way. But I think it's, like I said, it's football from then till now, it's definitely brought the geeks, the nerds into it. And I think it's actually bridged that gap between these guys who just, like if you look at it, more and more people are catching on to to this idea that people like Graham Souness, Roy Keane, they don't belong on TV. They're dinosaurs. They're just there to create controversy and give everybody those sound bites. They actually don't belong there. People would rather listen to the likes of Rafael Honigstein and Fabrizio Romano,
Yep.
because those guys bring so much more insight to the game. And if you look at the attitudes from a few years ago to now, it's like almost like, especially from former players, it's like, if you haven't played the game before, what gives you the right to have an opinion about it, And the same goes for how dare Andre Villas-Boas or Julian Nagelsmann become a coach at 30 years old when he hasn't even played the game. There was generally like from former players, they would look down at these type of characters, And I think the fact that tactics has been made more inclusive and people have a better knowledge of the game has completely shattered those myths that you must have played the game at the highest level to be the best coach and so on. And I mean, look at what Chris is saying. Someone like Alan Shearer, probably the best striker, in my opinion, who's ever played in the Premier League. He's technically clueless, and we hear that week in, week out. And it's and I think what we're going to start seeing more now is that more and more former players, you're going to see them disappearing off our TV screens. I think we've already started seeing the shift, and I think it's a good thing. You're going to see a lot more fan representation, more journalist representation, analysts, and so on. And I think that's when the quality of what we're seeing, especially from the technical side on TV, will start to get better.
Cool. Okay, gents, let's leave it there. Football Fanatics, if you're still watching, thank you very much for sticking around. Let us know what your thoughts are. Pop a comment down below on YouTube. Like I said, hit us up on social media. My editor sent me a note in my ear. Xhaka didn't pull the middle finger. He told the Arsenal fans to F off. So my apologies for giving you the incorrect information. So quickly, let's just summarize this. I think number one, there's benefits to the change of being social media fans. Enjoy the debate. Enjoy talking about tactics with fellow fans. Enjoy the banter. Enjoy the argument. Stop abusing players. It's fine to be asking a player to run harder. It's fine to be asking a player to be more dedicated to your club. Do not racially abuse players. Do not abuse their fans, their families. Do not threaten their lives, including referees. That's disgusting. And number three, for me personally, when a starting lineup comes out, you support the club. Give them a chance before you start running them down. Watch the match for 90 minutes, and if it doesn't go your way, by all means, have a go after that. But try to enjoy that 90 minutes of watching the team that you support play football. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon. Cheers.